Right, in this video, I would like to introduce the tools that you can use in literature search. These are mainly literature reference database, which you should set up, install and set up on your computer. It helps you to collect literature and create a database of the relevant literature to your project. And once you have it, all the references stored, you can also use the same tools when you are writing to do your citations and style them according to the format that you prefer. I'm sure you are familiar with citation formats like APA, Chicago styles, and so on. Right. In this video, my you will notice that my voice is always subject to attack by allergies. So I'm allergic to quite a number of things that can affect my voice. So this is the case while I was recording this video, my voice was definitely affected, and but I think you guys can understand what I'm saying. You can hear it clearly. The mic I have is quite good enough. And so, anyway, apologies for the audio, which is based on my own voice being affected by allergies that afflict me every now and then. Enjoy. Right. In my lecture on literature review, I talked about managing your literature search material using various databases that are available. And basically, you have two options. You have to, if you are working on the Windows platform, the dominant reference tool is EndNote. EndNote works with Microsoft Word. It comes, of course, at a cost. And the other option is to go open source. And open source has got some tools that are quite useful. The one that I have always used is JabRef, which I could use with LaTeX as well as LibreOffice. It does not work with Microsoft Word. Of course, if you are using open source, you wouldn't use Microsoft Word or Microsoft Office. You would be using LibreOffice, which is also open source. So both LaTeX environments and LibreOffice are open source environments. So there are these two options. What I, of course, what I recommend is for you to seriously consider open source. The reason is that, as you know, our environment is a limited resource environment. We are also interested in developing our technologies. So we would like to use tools that allow us to study the tools as well, and if possible, getting open source for them, and if necessary, develop plugins that are important for our own languages. So software that can be customized to suit our circumstances is important. But in addition to that, we know, being a low resourced environment, some of the things we don't have is the money to buy EndNote, for instance, both at institutional level and at individual level. We just have no money to buy it. That's it. And open source opens up a number of opportunities, including low cost, as well as the capability to modify it to suit our local languages. So, with those advantages, I think our environment is more suited to using open source technologies. Of course, when you compare the functionality, they are comparable in the sense that most of the basic functionality that you use for literature review are also available on open source. Of course, you are looking at a scenario where some technologies have got a lot of money and got the capability to hire and people who work daily to develop the software, whereas open source is based on volunteering. So in the process, I think when we use open source, we can also develop the capacity to participate in the development of these technologies, because we have access to the code base, and therefore we can develop our own capacity to develop it, and possibly eventually maybe develop elements of it which can deal with our languages, which is very important in our language National Language Institute, and the technology group under that institute, which we have the pleasure of participating in and also leading in terms of some of the research projects that are important for our languages. So today I just want to go to show you how these two looks, or rather, I'm not going to look at EndNote really, because I'm not showing the Windows environment in most of my my presentations or my talks. I would rather give examples using the Linux platform. So what you see on the screen are basically two screenshots of JabRef and screenshot of EndNote. Right, let's see if we can go to the environment for one of these. For instance, here on my computer, I do have JabRef. Let me start with JabRef before I go to other open source technologies. Right, JabRef, you can directly install it in your Linux environment. Of course, here I'm running Ubuntu, which is obviously a very efficient system and a joy to use. So under Ubuntu and most of the Linux distributions, you have quite a number of reference managers that you can install, which work closely with a lot of technologies that are integrated into your system. In my case, at the moment, because I've set up this machine for use in this particular demonstration, I have installed JabRef. You install it normally using the normal repositories. You can find it directly in the repositories, because it's one of the leading reference managers that works very well with LibreOffice, the main office suite for the Linux environment. Notice that on the left here, the screen is very minimalist compared to the EndNote screen. On the left here, you have search, which is capable of searching on a number of databases. For instance, here I've chosen Semantic Scholar, which is one very accurate in terms of search. It searches for the software you want, and there are also open data sets or reference databases that you can search. Some of these, of course, you are familiar with ACM portal and archive, the archive, where these are not really published papers. Authors could put them there, and they are usually approved. There is minimum review, but there is a basic review that is done, and there are of course other quite a number of these, like CIX. Was quite popular at some point. There are also databases like DBLP and so on. So you can choose specifically the ones that you want. Like Springer is also now available. Semantic Scholar is available. What we don't have are databases like Scopus and a number of them. I think many of them will eventually open up and allow open source technologies to use these. Some are domain specific, like those who are doing health tech might want to search under Medline or PubMed. ResearchGate, yeah, it's another growing environment, especially in Europe. Springer, obviously, you guys know Springer is the publisher. So there are not many, but they are enough for you to do your research of these, and they are good for literature review, because you can run a search query against all of them and collect your literature search. And the software helps you to collect bibliography. You can also collect PDF versions of these files. So uh, that you can simply type your search and perform a search. And below that bar, you also have OpenOffice, LibreOffice, which means this piece of software can potentially connect to LibreOffice. Just to show you that, let me run LibreOffice and see whether the two can connect. Of course, you need to install the full plugins that allow this. Right, for this purpose, I will just open up a blank document just to see that, to test the connection between JabRef and LibreOffice. By the way, LibreOffice can also edit document that come from Microsoft Office, because the formatting now has been opened up to allow open source technologies to be able to play around with documents that come from Microsoft Office. You can also handle them here. So by moving to LibreOffice, you are not really moved. The only challenge might be that the the fonts on LibreOffice are open source fonts. So if you want the ones that are in Microsoft Office, there is a way to install them on Linux, and you can search that on the internet. You can get instructions on how you can install that. That might be useful, mainly because sometimes when you are writing research papers for a journal or a conference, they give you a template, and that template requires certain fonts to be used. And when you want to do that, to edit those templates, you may want to install Microsoft or closed source fonts in your LibreOffice. But once you have done that, then you are free to edit that document in whatever way you can, and then link this up to, to OpenOffice. So let me just add a title here. I will call ZW-CRC literature search management tools. The fonts themselves, when you are writing, especially your thesis, the fonts are quite good on their own without adding non-open fonts. And so I don't see any problem in moving to this environment. Once you install the fonts that are non-open source, of course, for specific reasons, um, you can basically move 100% to this. Okay, I'm not sure whether you guys might have a challenge, especially in moving to this, because it is basically everything you need. Most of the things you need are available, and I don't see any problem in completely moving to this. It is improving in many ways, and it was one of the very early open word processors. And there is a possibility that since it's open source, we can also modify it and make it support our languages. In fact, this will be our target office suite for supporting all our Zimbabwe's officially recognized languages, and it's very easy to write plugins that can be added to this, so that we can do word processing for our languages. So this will be very important for us. So we will need to study the code base and study closely on how we can do that. So this is a demonstration of using JabRef, right? JabRef is a reference manager, and a citation tool, right? I will just demonstrate how you can connect. Now that it's running, make sure that your LibreOffice is running, and you have your document open. And then if you could go to that, you can connect to this using this icon. This one is for connecting. The other one is for manual connecting, where you specify where LibreOffice is installed. But this one tries to discover on its own, this first icon, to discover on its own where you can, whether it's running. So what you do is you just click that and yeah, successfully connected. Right. Once you connect, it activates the citing menus. Right. Here I have a collection, my database for computational linguistics, which I am using. I'm currently collecting literature in the area of computational linguistics, but I'm focusing on agglutinative languages, where most of our languages in Africa or in Zimbabwe are based, are classified as agglutinative languages. So I'm particularly interested in what sort of research is going on in that space. Will help us to then kickstart a number of projects that will make our languages digitally vital, to increase the digital vitality of our languages. This is a project, a massive research program that is coming up in Zimbabwe under the National Language Institute in Gweru. We are in the process of applying for massive amount of funding, and we want people to also consider start doing PhDs in these areas. We are also interested in volunteer software developers who need to work on these aspects, especially in developing technologies that will be integrated into LibreOffice, for instance, so that we can process spell check, grammar check our languages. So this would be very important. So notice that the menu has been cited. You can see a number of items on the menu: citing text, image citations, separate citation. I am not going to go into this because this community is a community of computing experts. Most of you already have a degree or master's degree. Once you know what a tool does, you should be able to install it and configure it, follow instructions. So I'm going to look at that. Here on my system, it's connected successfully. I can cite. So suppose I'm writing a document and I want to cite certain languages, right? We could choose languages in West Asia, like our agglutinative language in Bahasa, Indonesia. So we have a lot to learn from that. So I need to look at what research is going on in that area, and development of Arabic language. Arabic language could be agglutinative. If it's generally considered agglutinative, that would be useful. Where else can we learn? What other literature can we learn? Of course, here I'm collecting also. I'm collecting also literature from around the world. Let's say I have chosen these two, and I just want to specify a point in my. I have a sentence where I say zo computational linguistics research directions also need to draw from work done across the world, um, especially for agglutinative languages in Asia, right? And I want to put this in the end. Across Asia, and I want to cite those two which I have indicated. So I have already highlighted. Of course, you need to press Control. Once you highlight one, you then press Control and highlight the other one. Right? What is the other one in my case? It was here or something like that. Arabic language and Indonesia, they are all Asian, whatever. So I can press cite. Once it's connected, it will definitely send the citation just at the end of my sentence, right? And notice that once you write your document citing like this. Of course, you can change the sort of type of formatting here. But once you finish typing your document, suppose it's ready. Of course, in my case, it's not ready at the moment. It's just something I have just made up here. But let's suppose I now want to generate at the end a reference database, or rather a reference list at the end of my document. You don't type. Right. Um, so I now need to go back to EndNote and insert the list at the end. So, right, to put the list at the end, you need to use this to ensure that the bibliography is up to date. The bibliography is the one that goes at the end. So it is made up of the ones that you have actually cited in your document. So if I click that and go back to Office, I should be able to find the reference section inserted, and it does insert all the ones that you are cited in your text. So you can keep on typing, and every now and then, after a while, you can have and they will be sorted, of course, alphabetically. As you can see, Fabian, and Keshav are sorted in alphabetical order. So that's all no problem. So in my case, I am currently just collecting the literature on agglutinative languages, most of them very recently. And of course, I will start adding 2023 as well, because I believe there should be some work going on, especially in area where in Europe, most of those languages are not really agglutinative, so we may not want to learn much from them, except some of them, like Nordic languages, Turkish languages, and so on, might be agglutinative. So we might want to learn what work has gone into that, in addition to African languages. So I'm collecting that, and of course, once it come times to analyze them, collect data, and eventually I want to write something, a paper on that. So I start from scratch, and usually I also collect bibliography. So if you double click on an item, you get this item. In fact, most reference software will give you that, and that is very important. Um, that is very important to know. Um, we will I will show you yet another. So that's, in fact, here you also have somewhere where you can put your notes or comments. This is comment, and you can actually put comments on that. Several people can even put comments. Here it's indicating that comments is from me. Here you can have general comments, you can put comments that are user specific, so that each person who is reading can leave a comment. Of course, the whole idea eventually is to allow sharing of this database. And then on the comment section, each person who is viewing this file will be given an area where you can read it and add your own comments as well. Right. So that's JabRef. Together with, of course, here in this video, I'm going to illustrate how to use it when you are using LaTeX. With LaTeX, it's a whole different ball game, because LaTeX tools already come with their own uh, uh, embedded reference management. All I need is to point to notice that the format of my file is bib. So bib is already ready to integrate into a. So when I'm writing in LaTeX, the references, once I say cite, the reference can come, and I can select the one that I want. So it's much easier in that environment. Those who are familiar with LaTeX will testify to this. So it's very important to know that. So that's how we work with job ref. Now let's proceed to, let me just close this. I'll just close this so that we can use yet a different tool. Possibly I want to start a new document. a new text document, and while we leave the other one available, and hopefully I just to make sure we test it properly. Make sure you test it properly. I will continue with that example, but I'll copy it in a new document to avoid uh, tools mixing up or messing up or confusing each other. Right, so suppose it's the same example I have, but I want to use a different tool, which is open source as well. It's called Zotero. Zotero is not yet in Linux repositories. It's available. You have to download it. If you look at my system, on my home directory, I create a folder called bin. Maybe let's just take a brief history of these tools before we can go on to this. So JabRef has got a website where you can download a copy. It can run on both Windows and Linux. But on Linux you can install it because it's incorporated into the repositories. So you can install it by a simple command like apt in Ubuntu apt install JabRef and install JabRef. Easy. Right. But if you want, you can download a copy as well. If you want the latest, that is, because the repository takes long to adopt the latest version. So you can do that. Notice that this is developed by volunteers. For instance, here they have a message. JabRef was founded in 2003 and has since been used by many students and researchers. Our mission is to advance knowledge and improve scientific research. And this is important to our community because that's what we are trying to do as well. We value open access to information and believe modern science can build on an open institutional structure. Right. This is why we develop JabRef as free open source software and save your data in a simple text file format with no vendor lock-in. The bib format it's text based. You can open it in any text editor and it's free. It's also the format is also open source. Right. This is created by researchers and for researchers. So as researchers as well in Zimbabwe, we may want to to contribute to what is going on. So they are saying JabRef is developed by a multidisciplinary core team of PhD students, postdocs, researchers in industry who work on JabRef in their free time without the support of numerous volunteers. None of this would have been possible. The concept of volunteering is very important, even in our community. We welcome anyone who would like to contribute to be part of an active user and developer community. In other words, some of our researchers could also be involved in this and incorporate their research products into this product. If you guys, for instance, right now, you are all familiar, know that we have ChatGPT, which can also be a problem for any future contribution to knowledge. Currently, we may need a tool that compare your own paper to that analyzes your references and make sure that they are really, so it's not, you can add functionality to this. Uh, so, so it's important to use tools like this that are open. They invite contributions to modifying the software or adding functionality. It's also open source. And you can also create derivative products, especially if we are looking at our own languages. These are some of the technologies that we want, right? So if you want to learn more, you can go there and see what sort of information we have. Now that's JabRef, and I recommend that. I like it. I've used it for a long time. Right. Now the other open source software we are going to look at is what is called Zotero. Many of you are probably already using Zotero because it does integrate with quite even browsers. It helps you to even collect the literature from the web page that you are using. So it is a very useful tool. But this one has got a particular organization that has got a leadership structure, right? They have a statement here which is quite interesting. Designed by historians, our software and services make research, publishing, and cultural heritage work possible. So interestingly, they characterize themselves as historians, right? Which basically means computing is not necessarily an area it's a multidisciplinary area, right? Here they are developing a software tool, together, of course, with some developers among them, right? And they have an interesting statement here is that they are committed to the responsible stewardship of critical open source infrastructure for the digital humanities, right? We founded the non-profit corporation for digital scholarship in 2009 to develop and operate the business models for Omeka and Zotero. And having secured the long-term sustainability and independence, usually they do secure these things through funding or through commitment either from government or from United Nations or UNESCO or whatever. And they have a sustainable fund, or sometimes they innovate from a business perspective and they start generating revenue stream, or even link up with universities who constantly put in money so that the organization is properly maintained while keeping the products open source and free to the majority of people who live on the planet. All right. So having secured long-term sustainability and independence, we've since helped launch and sustain a growing family of software products, including Troy, Press Forward, and Sorcery. Right. Of course, Sorcery sourcing, yeah, literature. Right. The leadership is quite clear, well stated here, and they have a board of directors. So it's software that is maintained by a well stated leadership structure. Unlike the JAPREF one, which is community wide, and people are free to donate. Suppose if you are using it and you're happy with it, you can give them $5 and all that stuff. And the more people do that, it helps to develop the software. So such software is consistent with even our concepts. Ihumwe kai. Concept here, humwe. People do that all the time. Now culture is part of culture as well. And so you also have some organizations that are associated. We partner with leading digital history and digital humanities centers. So obviously these are centers that could potentially also contribute some funding and so on towards these, but they do have a sustainability structure. Right. So every piece of software probably needs such level of support for it to be quite good. And Zotero has been doing very well and probably better than Jabref. Jabref is the community, and there doesn't seem to be a clear structure, which is okay because Debian is also like that. Although Debian has got some leadership and they have election every year to select the Debian leader and so on. But Zotero has got a well structured funding structure. Usually, if you put money into something, you need it to be structured like the way the Zotero team is because you need to put money where you know it is going to be properly handled and used for the purpose for which it is intended. So that is important to have that leadership structure. I think that's why there is a difference between these guys and Zotero. Right, now let's look at Zotero and how it works with Linux. Within Linux, notice that here, in terms of Zotero, I am running it directly. You download it, they haven't posted it in the Linux repository yet, but they are you can download a zip archive or rather an archive and you archive it in your in my case I put all software under bin in my home directory and I can run it from there. So in my case the file structure is very simple and what you run is basically written as Zotero. In this case it's command. You can run it from your command line and it pops up the Zotero app which comes up like this. One of the things that you notice if you have used the EndNote under Windows, you will notice that their user interface is more or less similar to EndNote. They tried by because the majority of people who are at universities around the world, universities normally just buy EndNote for the whole university, and the majority of graduates are used to EndNote. So these guys have just structured their user interface more or less like that, but without the clutter that you see in EndNote. If you compare the clutter that we see in EndNote, look at this user interface here for EndNote, which is this one. You see there's quite a lot here. Of course, it's more or less similar. You almost think you are using Zotero, but they have come up with that particular structure, which is fine, not a problem. But on JabRef, this window here, which is the summary of the selected or piece of work, is at the bottom rather than on the side. Of course, I don't know whether you can change it, but it should be flexible because that's Java based. With Java user interface, you could probably reorganize the user interface. But I don't mind whether it's here, it doesn't matter. You can always, leave. And you also have notes, a note feature. You can add a note. And if you are collaborating with somebody, you can also allow others to do it. You can also tag it according to your project. Of course, you could also look at the related works and add. For instance, if you click add, you see papers that are related together. You have this feature. I think it's just that we are not looking. I'm not really looking into how to use it. I didn't show you that feature in JabRef, but there should be capabilities of these. So usually there is also an abstract. Usually it's good once you collect also the abstract. You collect links to it. Like you can see the URL. The DOI is also a link. Some software can allow you directly to click on something. Like JabRef is good at that. You just click. There's an icon beside each where you can go directly to the website for that. So the DOI is very important, the URL is very important, the abstract, and everything else that allow you to come up with a good reference. So, right, now the question is, how do you use it? Right, the good thing about Zotero is that you install a plugin, you download the separate plugin for the various software you are using. So you don't need to always come back to this one. So what happens is that when you go to your document, let's go to our document here. It's taking long to respond. Let me see if, yeah, my system seems to be frozen. So what happens is that you are supplied with plugins for web browsers, which allow you to collect references into your database. And then your word processors also have got their own plugins. They have done for even Microsoft Windows and for LibreOffice. And you can simply install those plugins. And what happens is that you then begin to see icons or in the word processor itself, Zotero icons, which allow you to cite from the data. So it's also a comfort to use because you don't need to switch like in EndNote. You have to switch between EndNote and JabRef and insert the button to cite is in JabRef and you'll find it done on the other. It is still fine. I think I like it if I have a bigger screen. I just have Zotero there and my word processor there and I keep writing and selecting my references and citing. It doesn't matter. But with Zotero, the good thing about that one is that you can also read the abstract just to verify that I'm citing this is a relevant paper to the point you are trying to make. So it's handy, and sometimes you can link in JabRef. You can link it to a PDF, and you can easily click the PDF and see. But I'm sure here also you have a PDF viewer embedded. Notice that this is using Mozilla technology. Seem to be using Mozilla technology, and it was always tightly linked to Mozilla. Some time back, when I first encountered Zotero, it was very integrated into Mozilla. So they sort of used the Mozilla framework. It's possible that they have continued to do that. Even the icons have got a Mozilla-like tinge, which is quite interesting. So here I need to be able to go there. Now you can see these icons with a Z. These are Zotero icons. For instance, here I would like to cite some, and you choose even the style before you go on. For instance, here I can choose that, and now what it does is then it shows where the citation comes in, and I could type the citations that I want, and these ones I had identified them in the previous, but we can do with almost any. For instance, I might want to cite the ones that talk about Asia. Anyway, it's the same database. Remember, I imported the database I had in JabRef to here, and it's also computational linguistics. And of course, you can search something like Asia. Right, suppose all these are coming from Asia, but with certain language, like cognitive speech recognition. Right, okay, let me type Indonesia. They wanna Indonesia. Right, almost all of them are coming up. Now, suppose I want all these three, but I need just to remember the names. Fabian, Aji, and Keshav. Fabian, Fabian, Fabrien, Fabrien. Right. Then I go to Aji, 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 Aji. Right, Aji. I think I'll choose the first one, even though it doesn't matter. This is just an example. And then we had the very last one. What was it, by the way? I have to check again. I don't forgot. My mind can only remember about this. Start making errors after just a few of them. Right. It was also Keshav. 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 Right. Keshav is here. Right. And what am I supposed to do here? Can I press enter? Yeah. And if you press enter, there it comes with a upper style of that. Right. The question is, can it help me to create a bibliography at the end? Right. There is a button here for bibliography. There are other buttons that you see here, refresh and all that stuff. So let me add a bibliography. Right, there it is, but it doesn't put the title. So you can potentially don't try to type inside. This is the region, is the one that has got a box. It's an embedded object. So don't touch that. If you touch it, when you refresh it, it will be deleted. So rather put the references at the end. Whereas JabRef put this heading for you, you don't need to type it. So for us, in this case, we need to type it so that but we don't touch the one that it is generating. So with that, at the end of once you finish, you want to write, you can start writing and citing and all that, and everything is handled for on your own. Right. So in summary, it is important when you're collecting literature to use literature search management tools. The only they are they it, These tools have got functionality that allow you to cite, to write properly. It also allow you to link references together, and also collect PDFs and link them to the reference itself. So when you are looking at for instance, any one of the tools, it will have room to even look. It helps you to look for PDF, the actual file themselves, and it also assists you to link each of the references to the PDF version of the file, and sometimes it has got a link that you can use. So that is very, very important to start using your tools. Even if you are not doing research, you're not doing a project, you're just reading papers, it's good to add them, to collect them and add them under some classes. Here you can even group them. Like here I have computational linguistics. These are my own publications, which I haven't updated, of course. These are publications with my group, my students, and of course some of the people you already know here are people like Dr. Tatenda Kafu there when he was doing his PhD, and there are some of my students as well, and also some of my own supervisors. when I was doing my PhD. So see some people whom I supervised at one point or another across the world, right? So you can create groups here. It also shows you duplicate and so on. So it is important for you to use these tools. And my recommendation is use open source tools. They help us to even study them, look at the code, and and eventually make our languages more advanced as we integrate this into this. So, in the environment of choice, of course, in my case is using Linux. Linux. I don't care whether you use Ubuntu or Fedora or any other Linux-based system, but as long as you are not using pirated software, as I am saying, piracy is bad, and Zimbabwe is already notorious as a pirate country in terms of software. So avoid contributing to that. We don't want to train researchers. We don't want to train computing professionals who violate licensing issues, and we become a textbook case of a pirate country, right? So good luck in setting up your system to do your literature reviews and be able to use an environment that support our own environment, right? And potentially these are sustainable tools. Many of you are talking of, I read, I was looking at what sort of research is going on. Most of the research going on in Zimbabwe is in the area of information systems. We are looking at ICT for development, measure impact of ICT, whatever, and development goals and all that stuff. The issue is, how will you ensure development, sustainability, and all that stuff if you can't use, if you use pirated software, right? Either buy the software if you have the money, so that you remain professional, ethical, or use open source tools and use them also to develop a culture of improving the tools that you use. So it's important for you to make the right choices and stop promoting piracy in the country, and also help promote innovation by looking at these tools when we use them, and we look at how can you modify them. Of course, I know your level of coding, software engineering may be very low. If you are just a normal user, then don't contribute to unlicensed software. It's bad to see people presenting and a window pops up that says this PowerPoint uh, version is not, or your Microsoft Office is not, is pirated or is not licensed. Yeah, I've seen many people who are presenting and the window pops up that you have an unlicensed software. And of course, if I mentioned, I have seen textbooks that use the country as an example of pirated software, with over 90% pirated software, which is not a good thing to promote. What we need to promote is the use of open source technologies. Right. Good luck doing your literature review. With that, I end this video.